What did you learn in terms of entrepreneurship? Like your father was and is a great entrepreneur. Was there lessons that you learned from him that I guess sunk in differently once you'd been through the process? Like, was it a case of, right, okay, in theory, I've watched and I've learned, because you were quite involved in his business in the early days, but when you actually sort of came and did it yourself, did you get a slightly different perspective on what it was like to be a young entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I think what I learned a lot working for my dad that I was able to use, and I didn't appreciate it being in a family business until I started to look up 3 or 4 years, and I would have frustrations with my team, especially some of the ones that worked with me on the corporate side. Why isn't this obvious to you? Are you kidding me? Come on. Over and over, I do the same thing expecting a different result, and I didn't realize I was getting a master's, maybe a PhD in certain things, whether it be PR, how to compose yourself, how to read a contract, understanding a balance sheet, an income statement, a cash flow statement, all these things I took for granted because I had no choice but to learn to do them. It was actually something I hated, right? And so those are great talents and skills that helped me grow. Number 2, he taught me how to navigate not getting sued. He would talk about it all the time. Lawsuit, be careful, make sure you put 25% for insurance, 25% for this, put that in your pocket, spend the other pocket. He would tell me all these things, and I listened, but I didn't understand how important it was, because what you find is being in business exposes you. Just by virtue of being in business, and if you think somebody's going to come after you for something that you didn't do multiple times, you're crazy. Otherwise, law firms wouldn't be in business if they were just focused on going after people who actually did something, right? In business, I'm talking about. So I think that was something I wish I'd listened to a little bit more because I wouldn't have had heartburn, right? And then the last thing is what I should have paid attention to more is his response to conflict. And it's important. I've always felt like, how people respond to conflict is such an opportunity for growth. But how to be cool under destructive pressure, destructive conflict. Someone trying to destroy you for the sake of destroying you for no other reason, not monetary gain, because then you could just write a check, not for media or what the young people say, clout, because then you could just back off and say, I'm sorry. Sometimes people would rather than you win, just destroy everything. And I don't know how to respond to that. And I'm learning. And then lastly, just putting yourself to the side and like in that scenario, trying to say like, you're not always going to agree with people, but if you invest in relationships with people, you can get through situations like that, So long story short, I think paying a little bit better attention to like, because sometimes I would see him take the low road. I'm like, yo, go get them. No, we can win. He'd be like,
Picking his battles, picking his
battles. And then I realized, looking back, we only have so much time on this earth. Time, energy, your bandwidth for stress, those are way more important resources than cash. You can get cash back.
Yeah. And that's an interesting sort of connection to my next question. So I understand your father almost went bankrupt. He owned a ton of property, ranches and everything, and then there was a day where he had to go back into the ring again. And tell us a little bit about that story, and I suppose how has that... It must have been quite a big thing for you as his son to watch that. Like, how has that shaped what you do now, if at all?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson that I can reflect on from that, the most important lesson, there's multiple lessons that I'll talk about, but the one that comes to mind right away is good things don't last forever, right? No matter how good they are, they do not last forever, but good people do. Good people can last forever, but you have to remain a good person, right? And then maybe you'll have better times, right? But you have to believe in that. Your lawyers are not going to tell you that. Your accountants are not going to tell you that. Your wife's not going to tell you that. Your friends, your brothers, sisters, cousins, they're not going to have that attitude. You have to like secretly hide and say, I'm a good person. I believe in what I'm doing. The good times are coming back, but they're not supposed to last forever, And sure enough for him, he had his days in the 70s and had to make his comeback. And
what actually happened? Like, how bad did it get? Did he actually lose everything?
Yes. So it started off with divorces, you know, that can knock you down a time or two in terms of financially. Number two, I think it was the late 70s or early 80s, he just got his money stolen. Like, he had a guy that managed his money. One situation was, sorry, George, we invested in, this is true, we invested in chicken ranches in Africa, didn't work out. $2 million down the drain, a big number like that. Another situation was literally someone just took his money, just like made a withdrawal, right? And I think maybe it signed a power of attorney or something like that. I have no clue. But they just said it's gone, and they chased him down, never got the money back. Another scenario, his bodyguard and head of security liquidated everything in his house in Livermore, California, where he had all his championship belts, his gold medal, like fur, like everywhere, like all his jewelry, everything, like all his like physical assets that had real value, just sold it all, like posted up and just ran an estate sale. And this is like, you know, late 70s, like, what do you do? Never found him, and he found him and he kissed him. And then, but the good thing is he never mortgaged anything, so he just had his assets. You know, he had a little bit of land left and all that. And finally, around 1986 or 7, he's like 330 pounds. I think there's 8 of us at the time, maybe 7. And he's like, I'm going back to boxing. And I barely remember this given the age I was, but my sister said the speech was, he sat us down and said, I'm going back to boxing. I'm going to be world champion, manifest. I'm going to always come home when I'm done. I'm going to be faithful, right? And he said things like this, I'm going to be a good man. I'm going to do it the right way. I'm not going to be running around partying and be, you know, running around with people in Hollywood. This is a job, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to take care of you guys. But he made the speech, and he put himself out there. How bad did it get? Everything was leveraged, and everything was coming due. And I believe he told me the number was, I believe he said he had about 300, could have been 200K of cash or whatever, burning cash every month. Because remember, he doesn't have a job. And he had way more debt than he had cash. And when they called on it, that was going to be gone. And we were just going to be broke. That's the way he explained it. And so, or he would lose all the land that we lived on. So we either lose the house or they take the cash. Long story short, we were going to be broke and out. And so he had to go back to boxing. That's how bad it got.
And he did become champion, is that?
And at the time, 8 kids with another on the way and so on and so forth. And yes, he did. He became champion and he started from scratch.
Wow. That's an impressive comeback.